Okay. So here we are. We're in Nahum 1, and this is the Saturday edition of Nahum 1. The second time we're going through it, we did it on Monday, and now we're going to do it again today. And today is September 16th. September 16th. And so this lesson is going to be slightly different from Mondays because I researched things a little bit differently. The message is essentially the same. You know, it's a warning against Assyria and their destruction that Nahum says, okay, you guys have been bad for the last 150 years. Yeah, God's done with you. So that's the essential message. So if you leave now, that's what you're going away with. But I'm going to pray and we'll get into it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this awesome night for us to hang out and chit chat for a while. We got to all throw in our experiences from this week and enjoy the good and discover what we learned from the not so good. And please open our eyes and our ears and our mouths to what you want us to take from tonight. Thank you for everything that we have, the friendships, and the open eyes and ears to hear what's being put out here by each of us and by you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so while I talk about Nahum 1, if you guys can also, if you're capable or able, find Second Kings. It's like farther back in the beginning of the Old Testament. Go to Second Kings chapter 18, because I'm going to read from some of that too. Verse 17. Hopefully I won't read too much, but I think the whole story kind of goes from Second Kings chapter 18, verse 17 through it bleeds into chapter 19 for a while. And it gives us a picture of why God did not like the Assyrians. And I think there's a question, what's wrong with the Assyrians? Why does it matter that they didn't follow God? What does God have against them? There's so many nations out there that don't follow God. So what? But it gives us some captured conversation that the king of Assyria basically taunts the God of Israel. So God's like, oh, no, you didn't. So we're going to read some of that tonight, which will be kind of interesting. So Nahum 1 is a very poetic book, and it's supposed to give the nation of Israel, or actually the southern kingdom, Judah, comfort, because their enemy is going to be destroyed. They're not really being warned. They're not given a chance to change. They're going to be told this is what's going to happen. No chance to change. We've already given you a chance. So I'll read Nahum 1 to get into the comfort of the language, because any of us, if we have enemies, we'd probably be dancing like, okay, yeah, God's taking care of his people. You know, he's taking care of me. That's awesome. He's telling the bad people to stop. And I think that's what we all want to some degree, is some kind of justice against people who do things that they shouldn't be doing. We all have them. We all have those experiences where, like, I wish those people could be shown that they're wrong. Because no matter what I say, they're just against me no matter what. And Nahum makes it very clear, God's going to take care of you. Likewise, he's going to take care of the problem. So I'll read Nahum chapter 1. And if anyone wants to read, go ahead. You can let me know and read from your version. Nahum chapter 1. This is a prophecy about Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshi. Adonai is a jealous and vengeful God. Adonai avenges. He knows how to be angry, and that's really key here. Why it's okay for him to be angry and not us, because he knows how to do it. We tend to, cross the line and stoop to the bad people's level. He knows how to be angry, so it's a righteous anger. So it's kind of okay for him to be angry. Adonai takes vengeance on his foes and stores up wrath for his enemies. He stores it up. Why? Because he's very patient. He's slow to anger. Adonai is slow to anger, but great in power, and he does not leave the guilty unpunished. Adonai's path is in the whirlwind and storm. And that basically is God uses nature to expose his power. And like he did with Jonah, he stirred up a storm. And other times with Jesus on the boat, he tests people's faith with storms, sometimes literal storms. Other times it's a flurry of emotions and bad things. In response to those bad things, we have these flurries of emotions. Whereas if we took refuge, and this language is used later in the chapter, if we take refuge in God during the storms, God will take care of those bad people, even though they seem to be doing better than us and overpowering us. God in the end will win, whether we see it today or in 100 years or whatever, at the new heaven and new earth. He will take care of his enemies, right? So I'll keep reading. And he does not leave the guilty unpunished. Adonai's path is in the whirlwind and storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. Oh, we had this discussion last time, Sean. Did you ever figure out how tall a God would have to be, or a person would have to be, to have like a 3-mile, puff of clouded dust? Did you do that?
I'm bad at math.
Yeah, so if someone wants to play with that, you can still play with that if you're interested in math. How tall would God have to be to have, that was my example. Let's say the clouds are a dust 3 miles, or a cloud 3 miles across. How tall would the average person be with a cloud of dust that size? He rebukes the sea and leaves it dry. So here he's also causing the sea to dry up, where that's also the punishment of the land where the evil people are, right? And dries up all the rivers. Again, more natural punishment of the people that do wrong. Bashan and the Carmel languish. The flower of the Lebanon withers. And this is Lebanon. And Lebanon is known for their cedars, for their trees. The cedars of Lebanon, it's a known thing throughout the Bible that amazing structures have been built with transported cedars of Lebanon. So even if the flowers are withering, that's a problem. The mountains quake before him. Again, God is using nature to overpower his enemies. And the hills dissolve. The earth collapses in his presence, the world and everyone living in it. Who can withstand his fury? Who can endure his fierce anger? His wrath is poured out like fire, the rocks broken to pieces before him. Again, this is God taking his wrath out, not on just people, but the land where they live, right? And then this is a comforting language to Judah. Adonai is good, a stronghold in time of trouble. He takes care of those who take refuge in him, but with an overwhelming flood, he will make an end of Nineveh's place, and darkness will pursue his enemies. So there wasn't much comforting language there, but it's still powerful, right? And so he gets back into this overwhelming flood that will end Nineveh, the capital. So once you take over the capital, the empire crumbles, right? So it may not seem like, oh, well, he's just taking over one city. No, if you take over a capital, you've dominated the entire structure, political structure, and everything else collapses.
You go
So
for the head.
exactly. Um, Keep reading with verse 9. What are you planning against Adonai? He is making an end of it. Trouble will not arise a second time. For like men drunk with liquor, they will be burnt up like tangled thorns. Holy cow. That's pretty vivid right there. Like straw completely dry. Out of you, Nineveh, he came. One who plots evil against Adonai, who counsels wickedness. And I have notes on that verse 11. They're referencing in Jewish tradition. The one referred to here is the king Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, a king of Ashur. And this is referenced in Second Kings. That's why I want us to know what it says in Second Kings chapter 18, verses 19 to 37. To me, I think it would go a little bit farther, but whatever. We'll get to that in a second. King Sennacherib was the king of Assyria from 706 BC to 681, right? So what is that? 87 years? No. 30, what's the math? About 30 some years, right? About 30 some years he's king, right? So Sennacherib, we can look him up even more if you want in non-biblical context, but we have some captured conversation here of his taunting of God, of Adonai, which is why God's like, I don't put up with that, right? I'll keep reading. Here's what Adonai says. Though they be many and strong, right? God is talking about Assyria. He knows they're powerful, right? But he pushes them out. And that's part of the story here, where God pushes the Assyrians out of Jerusalem. So they don't totally take over Judah. They've taken over the northern kingdom, Israel, but Judah is in the southern kingdom, and they try to take over that capital. That's Jerusalem, right? But God protected Jerusalem. So this is one of the battles that Assyria lost. So that the remnant, the Jewish remnant, could stay alive and the people aren't just destroyed. That way they can just keep living. And then the tradition, God can still have people to power through the ages and still have Jewish people today. Let's see. Here's what Adonai says. Though they be many and strong, they will be cut down and they will pass. And though I have made you suffer, I will make you suffer no more. Now I will break his yoke from your necks and snap the chains that bind you. Again, Assyria is a really bad, evil, corrupt superpower. So he's trying to remind them, this is what's going to happen. Just like you were slaves in Egypt, you're not going to be slaves to these guys anymore. Their yoke is going to be taken from you. You'll be my people, not Ashur's people. I will prepare your grave because you are worthless. And again, on Monday I mentioned this. How many people does God call worthless? I'm sure there's verses where he said something close, but to have a God say that and then follow through on his opinion, that's pretty intense. Where God says, I will prepare your grave because you are worthless. I'm just like, wow. And that's the end of chapter 2. And we'll look at chapter 2 on Monday. If you don't have anything to add, I can jump over to Second Kings. Does anyone want to add anything?
Well, there was another thing where it was like, you will have no descendants to bear your name. That just seems sort of crazy to me, to be like another phrasing for, I will be the end to your bloodline. It ends with me. So, and then there was another thing towards the top where, what do you read for verse 2?
Hold on. I think I lost it. Micah, Nahum, chapter 1, verse 2 says, Adonai is a jealous and vengeful God. Adonai avenges. He knows how to be angry. Adonai takes vengeance on his foes and stores up wrath for his enemies.
Okay, I have pause when it comes to describing God that owns everything basically as jealous, because I take it as not a loving act, because you can be very cautious about your let's say your marriage partner, to be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I want to keep you away from trouble. It's not like for anyone to have eyes on them, or them to to put out eyes looking at someone else. That
Mm-hmm.
you still have them for so much other time. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like being jealous or imagining having someone else having more when they steal your one cookie when you have nine others.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem right to say jealous, but then that might just be our recent subjective, I don't want to say subjective, but in this feeling sense, when we hear something as strong,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a sound that we put in our jaw when we say jealous
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, because I find it to be a dialect for zeal or zealous, and something that is very I did mention it having the sense on being very cautious or looking for something, for searching for things, sort of like a crusader type would, but it
Mm-hmm.
still gives me pause whether it be just how it's spelled or my own interpretation about the word jealous. It
Mm-hmm.
still feels something not
Mm-hmm.
a loving being
Mm-hmm.
would do. They would be
Right.
very protective about their people, being like, no, leave my people alone. They're chosen, not you. But
Yeah.
it still gives me worry on the imagination when it comes to, could he really be jealous? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Because
it
the
comes
words may betray their intention,
right. Exactly.
whether as a writer or me as a reader.
Right. Exactly. So I think the easiest way to explain that, because we are faulty in our jealousy, right? We are human, we're fallible. But what helps me in this pause is the conversation that God had with Jonah, where Jonah's like, I hate these people, they're evil, they're against you, whatever. Um, and God is like, excuse me, who are you to be angry at these people? If I love them, they're worthy. If I want to spare them, they're worthy. And Jonah's like, but yeah, not only do I hate the people that you want to spare, why did you kill off this plant? It was serving me. It was doing what I wanted to do. It was giving me shade. Why did you kill the plant? And God's like, "Oh my gosh, Jonah, are you hearing yourself? Who are you to be angry about the plant? How can you prioritize a plant and get greedy about a plant? You didn't make it. I made it. Not only that, I made these Assyrians. They may not like me right now, but they will once I prioritize them, once I spare them, then they'll like me, right? So you have no power compared to me. Your anger is not righteous. My anger and my mercy goes where I say it goes. And that may seem like God is just full of himself from our human perspective. But once you kind of see it from his perspective, it's more like I keep the planets spinning. I keep the universe moving. I made every single person. I make every single plant. So if it serves its purpose for a short time, that's what it's going to do. It's going to serve it for just a short time. If it serves a purpose in showing a miracle and how compassionate I am, that's what it's going to do. Those people are going to be evidence of my compassion. Why? Not because they hate me, but because they're willing to change. And that's where God shows mercy. And that's where we're supposed to show mercy, not towards a jealous God, like fear him, right? It shows respect. And I feel like if we think of God as someone that we should respect, not so much fear, I think it's a safer word to use, because we'll always want to misinterpret the word jealous or fear. Because God is a bad way of saying it. God has earned the right to be jealous and angry, because he made everything. So it's not so much he hates people. It kills him to destroy the people that he's created. Everything he does is intentional, and it's for us to learn a lesson. And that's a long-winded way to kind of soften the blow of having a jealous God. Because if you're afraid of this jealous God, then he can, destroy you at any second, right? Or cause. A lot of people would, say, well, why did God do this and this and this? Some would respond, well, because you sinned. God's torturing you, or killed your kid, or caused you to get sick because you don't believe in him strong enough. And it's like, no, no, it's not about that. And it used to be like that. People that didn't understand science, they were faith-based. They didn't have any other explanation. But now we understand science, and even then there's consequences in science. We know if you do this and this, you'll get sick. So let's not do this and this, whatever it is. You eat poorly, or you run in front of a car. It's there's consequences, and there's natural consequences, and God's not always going to protect you, because maybe there's something we need to learn in the bad that comes to us. Maybe it's supposed to strengthen us. And again,
Friction builds character, right?
yeah, exactly. And I said something like this the other day, where those who don't believe in God, they actually have an advantage here over people who do believe in a God. Because if someone dies, they're not going to blame God, because there's no one to blame. It's just, that's life, that's death, right? So, but once you throw in, there's an all-knowing and all-powerful God, then people start questioning, like, well, why did God let that happen? And so that's a spiritual conflict, an emotional conflict that people who believe in a God, that they have, right? So we need to be careful when we go do experience bad things. I've learned from Mel Robbins recently, it's kind of cool, where she used to usually, she admits that she panics a lot. She stresses out very easily. And, she's got all these skills and whatever, these little tricks to chill out, and her latest question on one of her podcasts, actually, it was a live Zoom training from earlier this week. She said, the way to stop panicking or stressing when a bad thing happens, is just ask yourself one question. What if it all works out? What if it all works out? Maybe this bad thing we may not want to happen, but what if it's okay in the end? Right. And that's kind of what God is wanting us to think too. Don't stress. Put all your cares and your worries on me. Find refuge in me, and I'll take care of it. Rest in me, and I'll take care of it. Pray to me. I got you. And a lot of songs are like that. Where, one of the songs that we shared a few days ago, I don't remember exactly the title, but there's the theme in a lot of Christian songs is, God, you can take away this trouble, but even if you don't, I'll still be close to you. I'll still respect you. I'll still love you. And that's where God wants us to be. And the evidence of this is, and I'll jump to 2 Kings, where God does show how he takes care of his people. So if you do have a minute to find 2 Kings, it's a lot of reading, but I think it exemplifies what God didn't like about Ashur. So we're in Second Kings, chapter 18, verse 17. From Lachish, the king of Ashur sent Tartan, Rav Saris, and Rav Shaki to King Hezekiah or Hezekiah in Jerusalem. Again, it's Hebrew for Jerusalem, with a large army. So imagine Ashur is sending an army against Jerusalem. This is in the southern kingdom of Judah. They advanced and came to Jerusalem. Upon arrival, they came and positioned themselves by the aqueduct from the upper pool, uppercase U, uppercase P, so it's an actual place, which is by the road to the launderer's field, which is an actual place. They summoned the king, but those answering the call were Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the household, Shevna, the general secretary, and Joash, the son of Asaph, the foreign minister. So you've got a lot of political guys involved here. Rav Shake addressed them. Tell Hezekiah, right? Here is what the great king, the king of Ashur, says. So there's a messenger with a message from the king of Ashur to these other political leaders of Judah. What makes you so confident? Do you think that men's spoken words constitute strategy and strength for battle? And whom then are you trusting when you rebel against me like this? Now look, relying on Egypt is like using a broken stick as a staff. When you lean on it, it punctures your hand. Do you have that visual? That's what Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is like for anyone who puts his trust in him.
I hate
But
splinters.
yeah, exactly. It's like you're not making any sense to have a support like that because it's not going to help you.
Counterproductive, right?
That's what Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is like for anyone who puts his trust in him. But if you tell me we trust in Adonai, our God, then isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, telling Yehuda and Jerusalem, you must worship before this altar in Jerusalem? All right, then, make a wager with my lord the king of Ashur. I will give you 2,000 horses if you can find enough riders for them. How then can you repulse even one of my master's lowest ranked army officers, meaning you're no match? Yet you are relying on Egypt for chariots and riders. Do you think I have come up to this place to destroy it without Adonai's approval? Adonai said to me, attack this land and destroy it. Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, Shevna, and Joash said to Rav Shaka, please speak to your servants in Aramaic. Ooh, this is interesting. Since we understand it, don't speak to us in Hebrew while the people on the wall are listening. But Rav Shake answered them, did my master send me to deliver my message just to your master and yourselves? Didn't he send me to address the men sitting on the wall who, like you, are going to eat their own dung and drink their own urine? Like, this is a message for everybody, not just for you. So, no, I'm going to speak so everybody understands this threat here. Then Rav Shake stood up and speaking loudly in Hebrew, said, hear what the great king, the king of Ashur, says. This is what the king says. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you, because he won't be able to save you from the power of the king of Ashur. And don't let Hezekiah make you trust in Adonai by saying, Adonai will surely save us. The city will not be given over to the king of Ashur. Don't listen to Hezekiah, for this is what the king of Ashur says. Make peace with me, surrender to me. Then every one of you can eat from his vine and fig tree and drink the water in his own cistern until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land with grain and wine, a land with bread and vineyards, a land with olive trees and honey, so that you can live and not die. So don't listen to his Kiyahu. He is only deluding you when he says Adonai will save us, right? So he's trying to say, God's not going to have your back. I have your back. You can come and be with me, with my gods. I will take over you and I will treat you well, right?
So what was he sassing about? He was saying like don't well, first of all, don't hide away what you mean for your people. But then
Yeah.
again, was he also trying to say like don't depend on their government, otherwise they will become loathsome dung eaters?
Yeah. Well, Hizkiyahu is the king of Judah, right? Jerusalem is the capital of the two Jewish kingdoms, right? There's the northern kingdom and southern kingdom. The southern kingdom has only two of the 12 tribes. The Assyria took over the top, which is why he can boast and like talk so tough, because he took over the northern kingdom with the 10 tribes. But now he's like, okay, now I'm going to go after you. I'm going to take your capital. And I can prove to you, look at what I did to the northern kingdom. So tell your king, no, your God's not going to take care of you. You need to come after me and follow me, right? Because it's typically what, that nasty talk, like I'm going to make them eat their dung and drink their urine. It's just scary talk, right? Just trying to, it's psyops, right? Trying to get into their head, promise them, follow me. This is a satanic thing. When Jesus was after he was baptized in the wilderness, Satan tempted Jesus. If you remember those stories or know any of those stories, what did Satan say? Bow to me and I'll give you all this. I'll give you all the people. I'll give you everything you see on earth. And Jesus like, are you stupid? It is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord your God, because that's how close Jesus was to God. He's like, you're an idiot. No, I already own everything. What are you talking about? But that's the deception that Satan is using against Jesus, but he's also using that and speaking through the king of Ashur. He's saying, yeah, come follow me. Don't follow your own God. Follow me and my gods. I'll take care of you. I'll give you the same thing. I'll give you the same type of lands, wine and grain and whatever, like what you have. Come over here. I mean, that's deceptive, right? Because they're supposed to be separate. This empire wants to be their empire. This other empire wants to take over them. And it's very deceptive. Like, no, come over here into the concentration camp. It's for work, good work. That's good for you. Hard labor is good for you. Like, are you nuts? Like, no, those are not showers.
Oh, just like school. It's like college. It's a place that you focus.
Yeah.
It's a concentration campus.
Yeah. Whoa, never made that connection before. But yeah, so that's all this deception that Satan has used through people all through time. It's,
Hmm.
oh, I'll give you something better as long as you follow me, not God, right?
Yeah, well, Satan is sort of starting to sound like a used car salesman.
Yeah. So let me see, where was I? Don't listen to Hizkiyahu, for this is what the king of Ashur says. Make peace with me, surrender to me. Then every one of you can eat from his vine and fig tree and drink the water in his own cistern until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land with grain and wine, a land with bread and vineyards, a land with olive trees and honey, so that you can live and not die, right? So if you come with me, I won't kill you. That's pretty clear. So don't listen to Hizkiyahu. He is only deluding you when he says Adonai will save us. Has any God of any nation ever saved his land from the power of the king of Ashur? So he's boasting here. He's like, really, has any God protected their people from me? I don't think so. Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Eva? Did they save Shamron from my power? Where is the God of any country that has saved its country from my power, so that Adonai might be able to save Jerusalem from my power? So he's taken over all these people and he's bragging, like, I've done all this. Why do you think your God is any different? But the people kept still and didn't answer him so much as a word, for the king's order was, don't answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the household, Shevna, the general secretary, and Joash, the son of Asaph, the foreign minister, went to Hizkiyahu with their clothes torn and reported to him what Rabshakeh had added. I'll continue in chapter 19. On hearing it, King Hizkiyahu tore his clothes, covering himself with sackcloth, and entered the house of Adonai. So he's pleading with Adonai, right? This is the kind of the begging posture.
I thought this was a Nahum session.
This is
a very long, like, asterisk footnote.
Yes, this is how we understand the mindset of Assyria, of Ashur. This is the king sending messengers to Judah to be like, dude, you're nothing compared to me. And God is like, Ashur? I don't think so. But this is kind of the intermediary conversation why God is so interested in destroying Ashur. Because Christina was asking about this. What did Ashur do wrong? And this is part of it. He tried to take over Jerusalem and the southern kingdom like he took over Israel, the northern kingdom. So this is kind of the political talk. So this is the king of the southern kingdom responding to the taunts. He's going to Adonai saying, dude, God, we need you, right? This is how he does it. He sent Eliakim, who was in charge of the household, Shevna, the general secretary, and the leading Kohanim, covered with sackcloth, to Yeshayahu, the prophet, or Isaiah, the son of Amos. They said to him, this is what Hizkiyahu says. This is what the king of Judah says. Today is a day of trouble, rebuke, and disgrace. Children are ready to be born, but there is no strength to bring them to birth. Like the mothers are frightened. They have to give birth, but then they're being taunted by potential war. So they're afraid. Maybe Adonai, your God, will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Ashur, has sent to taunt the living God, and will rebuke the message which Adonai, your God, has heard. So pray for the remnant that is left. And that's the southern kingdom with just two tribes left of Israel. When King Hizkiyahu's servants came to Yeshayahu, he said to them, tell your master that this is what Adonai says. Don't be afraid of the words you heard the servants of the king of Ashur used to insult me. I will put a spirit in him that will make him hear a rumor and return to his own land. Then I will cause him to die by the sword of his own land. And I read chapter 2, and there's some notes that mention how he's going to die. We might get to it if I read far enough. You'll understand how the king of Ashur dies. Rabshakeh returned, and having heard that the king of Ashur had left Lachish, found him making war with Libnah. Then, on hearing it, said to Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, this is way cool because Ethiopia is still a country today, and I kind of like that. Ethiopia was a real thing back then. It's still a country today. Ethiopia was on his way to fight him. The king of Ashur sent messengers to Hizkiyahu, telling them, this is what you are to say to Hizkiyahu, king of Yehuda. Don't let your God in whom you trust deceive you by saying Jerusalem will not be handed over to the power of the king of Ashur. You have heard what the kings of Ashur have done to all lands. They have completely destroyed them. So how will you be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered them? No, My ancestors destroyed them. Gozan, Haram, Retzeph, and the people of Eden who were in Tel Assar. Where's the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, the king of the city of Sepharvaim, of Hena and Eva? Hizkiyahu took the letter from the messenger's hands and read it. Then Hizkiyahu went up to the house of Adonai and spread it out before Adonai. Hizkiyahu prayed as follows in the presence of Adonai: Adonai, God of Israel, who dwells above the cherubim, you alone are God of all the kingdoms of earth. You made heaven and earth. Turn your ear, Adonai, and hear. Open your eyes, Adonai, and see. Hear the words that Sennacherib sent to taunt the living God. It is true, Adonai, that the kings of Ashur have laid waste the nations and their lands, and have thrown their gods into the fire, for those were non-gods, merely the product of people's hands, wood and stone. This is why they could destroy them. Now, therefore, Adonai, our God, please save us from his power, so that all the kingdoms on earth will know that you are Adonai, God, only you. Then Yeshuyahu, the son of Amos, sent this message to Hizkiyahu. Adonai, the God of Israel, says, you prayed to me against Sennacherib, king of Ashur, and I have heard you. Here is Adonai's response concerning him. Okay, and I won't, I'll just go as far as I feel like, but this is a good message, a comforting message that goes along with Nahum as a comforting message for the southern kingdom. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you. Okay, this is Isaiah's words back to the king of Ashur, which I love. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you. She laughs. She laughs you to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head at you. She's like, are you stupid? You're like an idiot king. I'm the real God. Okay, whom you have taunted and insulted, against whom have you raised your voice and haughtily lifted your eyes, the Holy One of Israel. I'm the one that you've taunted. Though your messengers have taunted Adonai, you said, with many chariots I have ascended the mountain heights, even in the far reaches of Lebanon. I cut down its tall cedars and its best cypresses. I reached its remotest corners and its best forests. I dug wells in foreign lands, and I drank the water. The soles of my soldiers' feet dried up all the rivers of Egypt. Haven't you heard? Long ago I made it. In antiquity I produced it. And now I am making it happen. You are turning fortified cities into heaps of ruins, while their inhabitants, shorn of power, are disheartened and ashamed, weak as grass, frail as plants, as grass on the rooftops or grain scorched by the east wind. But I know when you sit, when you leave, when you enter, and when you rage against me. So God's saying, I know all this stuff about you. And because of your rage against me, because of your pride that has reached my ears, I am putting my hook, this is graphic, I'm putting my hook in your nose and my bridle on your lips, and I will make you return by the way on which you came, which means you're going to leave Jerusalem and you're never going to come back. This will be the sign for you. This year you will eat the grain that grows of itself. The second year you will eat what grows from that. But in the third year you will sow, reap, plant vineyards, and eat their fruit. Meanwhile, the remnant of the house of Yehuda that has escaped will again take root downward. I love this graphic nature of comparing a nation to a plant or grain or flowers. Meanwhile, the remnant of the house of Yehuda that has escaped you will again take root downward and bear fruit upward, for remnant will grow out from Jerusalem. Those escaping will go out from Mount Zion. The zeal of Adonai Savaot will accomplish this. Therefore, this is what Adonai says concerning the king of Ashur. He will not come to this city, Jerusalem, or even shoot an arrow there. He will not confront it with a shield or erect earthworks against it. Earthworks meaning buildings. By the way he came, he will return. He will not come to this city. This is the end of the chapter. He says this, says Adonai, for I will defend this city and save it, both for my own sake and for my servant David's sake, right? Because he knows Jesus needs to come. David is the king after God's own heart. Even though he wasn't perfect, God still has a promise to his people, right? That night, the angel of Adonai went out and struck down 185,000 men in the camp of Ashur. Early the next morning, there they were, all of them, corpses, dead. So Sennacherib, king of Ashur, went and returned to live in Nineveh. Okay, so even though 185,000 soldiers were massacred by God in some magical way, right? The king was still saved, which is interesting. And he went back to Nineveh, right? One day, as he was worshiping in the temple of Nisroch, his god, his sons, Dramelech and Sheretzer struck him with the sword and escaped into the land of Ararat. So his son, Esarhaddon, took his place as king. So that's the end of that portion of Assyria. Assyria isn't destroyed, but a lot of them are, and that particular king is gone. And I just love that, just the whole graphic nature of the history of Assyria. He was done in by his own son, which is scary when you think of it. You know, that's how corrupt and evil Assyria was. This king who tried to taunt God, God's like, I don't think so. By the way, your own kid is going to kill you. So it's just amazing. I don't know why I'm so excited, but it's just, I love how the references in different books of the Bible tell the history. And you're not just hearing something poetic and something is going to happen. You hear that it did happen. I just kind of like that. Does anyone have any stuff that they want to throw out here for the recording?
And this is why the Bible would be X-rated. Imagine this in a kid's play.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's at the very least R-rated. There's no sexual content, but it's, imagine trying to put this to a movie. Yeah, it wouldn't be really for kids. I mean, that's what the cartoonists try to do. Is they try to dumb down the Bible a little bit. I mean, just a simple story with two people, right? David killing Goliath, right? I mean, it's something that needs to be said so that kids understand how powerful God is, right? It needs to be said. It needs to be illustrated. But it
Where
needs to.
else has Assyria been mentioned? Because I'm looking at the books in order, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. This is mentioned. The end was pointed out in Second Kings, and there's also Ezra. That's funny. And then there's Nahum, like way in another book, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, just after Micah. So it makes me think. Oh, and then Jonah. That's
Yeah.
like Assyria really had it had themselves done in for like a long while.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of cool because you get short books that reference longer books, previous books. Some books are intended to give more detail. So yeah, the order is very interesting. So yeah, Assyria was powerful for a long time. So it makes perfect sense for us to um, see how bad they were instead of just trusting Jonah. You know, you know, they, Assyria was bad for a long time. So it makes sense that we get to hear some of the detail, to hear some of the proof. Oh, God knew what he was doing. Yeah, now I see some of the detail. Maybe I could put it in a movie, right? This is some of the conversation that was captured. All of them had, they kept scribes, these military conquests. They had people take notes, and this person died and this person died. And, you know, that's how they were so powerful. That's how we know the history of these people. It wasn't just, um, you know, it wasn't just word of mouth, right? They had writings back then, and they took notes, and we know what languages they spoke: Hebrew and Aramaic, right? So it just helps us understand better the context of the times. This is the Middle East. They're not speaking English, right? They're not speaking French. This is all Hebrew and Aramaic right now. And those languages are very ancient languages. And the sooner we learn it, I think the more we'll understand history. They're not the easiest languages to learn, and not all of us will. But it just opens our eyes to history all the more, and it just makes it exciting. If you're interested in this stuff, it makes it more thrilling and more exciting. Oh my gosh, BC. I thought Hebrew was, just in the time of Jesus. Since then, like, no, Hebrew was a long time ago, hundreds of years, thousands of years before Jesus. There's always a Aramaic and Hebrew were always companion languages. They're always competing languages where you got to know both, right? They're like, dude, don't speak Aramaic. My people need to understand what's going on. Speak Hebrew. And so that tends to happen where the elite want to keep the elite, you know, in the secret behind closed doors. They're like, no, whoever these people are on the wall, they need to know what the heck is going on too. Everybody needs to know what you're doing, and what you're doing is wrong, right? So I like that correction there, that rebuke, because it just helps us understand this was supposed to be, they're trying to make it a secret meeting, but people are like, no, it's not going to be a secret meeting. You're going to say this, whatever you're going to say. Everyone needs to understand what you're going to say. Everybody needs to hear this. So I love this.
It makes me wonder how stable or consistent their language was before, as Hebrew and Aramaic being like sister situations,
Mhm,
like
mhm. Yeah,
being
yeah,
so close together. But
yes,
oh well.
yeah. I mean, they were all blended because this country would constantly take over that country, right? Like the king of Assyria was saying, like, I've taken over these people, these people, these people. Like, who are you? And your God is just no different from all these other gods. But guess what? No, Isaiah is very clear. I think it was Isaiah, right? It was Isaiah. Yeshayahu is saying, look, this is why you could take them over, is because they're not real gods. They're just things that people worship, right? Things that they made. So it's very good for us to hear these rebukes. So even in Jesus' time, Aramaic and Hebrew was spoken, right? Because all these countries intermeshed and people traveled. Even though they didn't have Teslas, they traveled like crazy all over the place, right? If you look at a map, Egypt is pretty far from Jerusalem. It's not, 2 minutes away. You got people from the far reaches of the Middle East, right? Like Iraq, you know, and part of if you look at the Assyrian Empire, it's huge. If you look at the Roman Empire, it's huge, right? So it makes sense that people should know both languages. Not everybody does, but the languages were always near each other. So you had to speak both. And it made sense that they're like, no, not just one language. You got to speak Hebrew because these people need to know what's going on. And I just love that. And Sean, you almost learned Hebrew. I so wish you did. Remember?
Well,
It had,
I'll be more receptive now because I
yeah,
can see how things are related, but
yeah.
maybe not before. I would have argued over how people is spelled people, but it sounds people, so I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, don't think about English. English doesn't count. There's so
No,
many
not anymore.
problems
But
with English.
yeah,
Yeah,
now I'll be more receptive to it, so I'll be able
yeah,
to pick out all the consistencies and little
yeah,
details to be like, oh, that's what that sound is. And
yeah.
I found somewhere that there was a certain accent, I forget where. Bryce changed my phrasing from accent to dialect, but this is an actual accent situation where
Mhm.
like like what is Yiddish, I think maybe.
Yeah. What
I was
about it?
trying to say like Jew German, but in the South. Anyway,
Mhm,
the Yiddish accent
mhm.
is said to be in the visual audio visualized spectrum to being the most accurate in how it's written and how
Mhm.
it looks in the audio form
Oh, interesting.
compared to other Hebrew or Aramaic sounds. Like A in English does not look like A as we
Mhm,
sound it out with our throat and mouth and stuff like that, but it was something like Yiddish,
mhm,
the Yiddish accent for Hebrew and stuff like that being the
mhm,
most accurate to how it sounds visually and written. So that
mhm.
seemed pretty cool. I might work on that.
Yeah, yeah. Just a funny tangent because you brought up Yiddish. Um, I took a an online test to test how much Yiddish I know.
Oh, so it's like an English person, an American taking English as a second language.
So I took a test and I got 100%. So I know my.
Wow. This is where?
It was just an online test that I took. It was
Oh, okay.
a jokey
It's just a
test,
general. Okay.
generic, but still, I'm like, I know these words.
Huh.
You know, how do I know? It's like schnoz. Like, what's a schnoz? It's
I
a no.
was gonna go there, yeah.
What's a mensch? A mensch is a man. Silly words
Hmm.
like that. Anything with a lot of sh and schnai and mensch, and they have that sh in it. It's out of the choices that they gave me, multiple choice. I'm like, duh, that's obviously Yiddish. It's not going to
Uh,
Galaka, that's not like Yiddish because it doesn't have the sound. When you hear
right.
it enough, you get to know, okay, most words sound like that.
Yeah,
Right.
there was a reason for me saying German but more south.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Yiddish is. Cool.
Yeah.
And
So,
we have two more chapters per Nahum, right?
yes, chapter 2 will be Monday, chapter 3, and that's it. And then I'll find another book, another short book to go over. Yeah, 2 more chapters. Um,
Yay.
yeah. So, I can pray and then we can stop the recording. We can still chat if you want. It's getting kind of late because we goofed around a lot and talked beforehand. Plus, we started late, right? Not at 4:30, or not at 4, but at 7:30. So, does anyone have anything they want to comment on before I pray? Good. Okay. So I'll pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this awesome day, for everything that we did today on the Sabbath and the lessons that we learned from people, the ones that um, hurt us, but also the lessons that we take in from the people that love us. Thank you for teaching us what you find valuable in your word, who you find valuable. Yes, you love everyone. Jesus died for everyone, but some people um, don't want that as a gift. They say, no, no, thank you, don't need it, don't want it. But looking at history, we know that you are a compassionate God, even to people that temporarily like you. you'll still spare them as long as they find refuge in you. These comforting words are just, they're reminders for us that you are who you say you are. You are the same through the ages. You're Adonai, you're the living God. Even though people taunt you, you're not the type to just sit back and let it happen. Um, Lord, thank you for the role model that you give us, and help us and teach us how to respond when we're taunted or when we're tempted. It could seem two in one. You have the holy anger. Help us when we get angry, because scripture does say, when we get angry, don't sin. It doesn't say get angry. It doesn't say don't get angry. It says when you get angry, don't sin. So it's okay to have um, a recognition of what is wrong. And that's okay. That is healthy. That's what we're supposed to do. Guide us in this journey that we have to see what you see, because unfortunately, that's what Adam and Eve gave us. That's the world that Adam and Eve gave us. Um, we're stuck in this world where we need to see what you see in order to make the right decisions. We could have been in a world where we didn't need to know the difference between right and wrong because everything would have been right. But unfortunately, that's where we are today. So knowing the difference between right and wrong is a blessing and a curse. And that's what we're given right now. So help us to always choose what's right, and understand why it's right. So thank you, Lord, for allowing all of us to be here. Thank you for Scott being here, for Tom being here, Sean and Bryce and Troy, and keep all those safe that could not make it today. Thank you so much, Lord, for being here for us. In Jesus' name, amen. And I will stop the recording right now.